Welcome to This Podcast is Making Me Thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is Two Up and Two Down. Here's our producer, Chris, to start us off.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Two Up and Two Down. And today we are discussing The Label Maker. So, Tony, why don't you start us off? Give us your first up.
The Label Maker, season 6. You got Berg and Schaefer, two stalwarts of Seinfeld lore. First up for the Label Maker, we got to give 2 ups and we got to give 2 downs. That's what we do here. My first up, this isn't so I'm gonna go with when Elaine comes into Monk's. Guess who's going to the Super Bowl with Tim Watley? Does her little dance. She's all excited, sits down with them, and then she starts telling the story. And then all of a sudden they both are like, and there's your ticket. Like, what you just ask them upstairs like you're Mae West? I mean, that whole, I'm calling it the whole scene. I hope I'm not taking too much there. You know, Jerry gets all upset. He re-gifted, de-gifted. Now he's using a, upstairs invite at Super Bowl's romp, the springboard to a Super Bowl sex romp. I mean, just a lot packed into that episode. That's a season 6 at Monk solid scene. I just came to mind right now the race when they're in Monks in the kind of middle seasons. They really get themselves. I don't know what the word is. When Elaine comes in, it's not just Jerry and George doing their back and forth, retelling a story, talking about the girl. This is when Elaine comes in. She's all excited, does her dance, and then they just slowly pick it apart. And the whole Mae West line, it's great. I just love it. They both just jumped right on it. They're like, and there's your ticket. Solid scene in a solid episode. We'll get there. First up.
Thank you, Tony. That is a good scene. So, Chris, over to you. What's your first up?
Incredible scene. For me, first up, I'm going to go opening scene. Jerry and George walking down the street. Jerry discussing he's got a Super Bowl ticket. And then George, he's offering George a ticket. And he's like, you're handing me a $1,500 bill. Are you paying for my hotel and airfare? And I say the same thing sometimes. Like, wait, you give me a free ticket, but I got to get there. I got to pay for parking. I got to pay for the hot dog, the beer. It's $500. Nothing's free. And nobody gets that more than Costanza. So incredible stuff. And it's still the first scene. They bump into Watley. And I just, George said, just 2 gals out shopping and gabbing. And then George responds, I'm getting a makeover. And that look Watley gives him, like what, dude? Like, it didn't fit, but gets me every time. So that opening scene, again, there was stand-up in this episode, if you recall. So it was, potentially that could have been a cold open, if you will. But a cold open that actually made sense within the show. So I think that set the tone for the show. Jerry and George doing their thing. And then, boom, quickly bringing in Watley. And then we all know what happens for this rest of this episode, which there's a lot going on. So I think there's a lot of ups we could touch on here. So, but for me, first scene.
Yeah, I love that. So thanks for mentioning it. Watley just not having anything to do with George and his comments. So yeah, that's a good scene too. Tony, back to you. What's your second up?
Yeah, the reason is because Jerry throws George under the bus, right? So Jerry says the whole thing, we blame George, and then you can just Watley played that so well. I mean, obviously, we know Cranston what he can do. As I mentioned, a lot going on here. You got a Watley, you got a lot of Newman. This is one of those season 6 episodes where they tend to do that, especially Berg and Schaefer. My second up, Sometimes, and this is why I brought it up. Season 6 and earlier Newman. I think we went over this when we went over our character brackets as the later seasons go. Especially, obviously we're not big fans of those episodes in general, but I think it also Newman gets very played out in those episodes. But I think this is a strong Newman episode. I'm going to give Newman an up. Actually, I think the whole wrist game with coming into the wrist game, and then how he just needles Jerry after he can't get the wrist game. He's like, "Guess who's going to the Super Bowl? Maybe you'll see me in a whole thing." And Jerry's just like, And then it's not really a Newman thing. I'm a little insulted. You're not a little anything. That's a great line there. Remnants of the old "you wouldn't eat broccoli was deep fried in chocolate sauce," whatever he says there. I mean, I think there's just enough Newman, him and Kramer playing the wrist game, on the subway, that whole thing too. Just good amount of Newman. At the end, obviously they tied in when Jerry's at the game with him, but who goes to Super Bowl with this mailman who goes anywhere with Newman? He is merry. In the end of it all, Jerry and George, they don't got that big of a problem with Newman. It's Kramer's guy. They're fine with it. That whole thing there. It's not really the nemesis we think he is, especially early on. I think they play up the nemesis stuff as it goes. The Hello Newman stuff. That all comes in a little bit later. This is kind of just more, just enough Newman as kind of that devilish figure that he is. But I'm going to give Newman my second up.
Yeah, definitely. This was a very good Newman episode, so definitely worthy of an up. Chris, over to you. What's your second up?
My favorite line, you didn't mention it with Newman, is, "I hope Tim Watley's electric bills don't get lost to the mail, or it'll be lights out for him." I thought that was pretty funny. You're like, just a devious little mailman. Yeah, you can just stop people's bills. I mean, what a sicko, huh? So Newman, yeah, good call there with the wrist stuff. Second up, you gave your ups. I'll go a little broad here, but I thought Jerry was really good in this episode. I talk a lot about Jerry being the quarterback, and he was quarterbacking everyone. You mentioned the Newman stuff at risk, Newman and Kramer more so together. He was kind of quarterbacking with George, the whole velvet story. Like, let me guess, you want to drape yourself? Obviously everything with Elaine, with the Super Bowl sex romp. And it was all centered around Jerry and the ticket, right? The Super Bowl. So he just did a great, great job distributing jokes and good stuff for each and every character, it's interesting. He rarely gets involved with everyone. We got to go involved with everyone here. So it was masterful. So I'll give Berg and Schaefer a good job writing specifically for Jerry. When I say who elevated the show, it's definitely Jerry, because he had his hands in everything. So for me, Jerry gets my second up.
All right, yeah, good shout out there. And good, pick up to see that Jerry was able to carry this one. So Tony, over to you. We're gonna go to the downs. What's your first?
And again, if you're playing at home with the this podcast, Making Me Thirsty bingo card, I don't have a lot of downs written down. I think I say that often as well. No, not a lot of downs. How I just touched on. This is a very solid episode. And season 6 will do that for you. My first down though, and I'm glad I went first because this is kind of my biggest down. The Watley Elaine thing at the end, the kissing at the end. Oh, Elaine, they get all, I just got it for you because you were so nice to me. It's a little too much, a bit overboard for my liking. Obviously, I know what they're doing there. But if I'm going to find downs, that's going to be it. I just thought, Elaine gets into the whole crying thing a little bit overboard, and then why they just embracing this whole thing. Never played well for me. It's one of those things where it would have been a down the first time I watched it. It's just always going to be a down. It's in my head that I don't like that part. And so, it's small and we'll get there. It's not like a huge, anchor or anything, but, it is a down. I thought it's a little bit, I know what they were doing, but the rest of the episode really didn't fit in my mind, as far as how the rest of the tone of the episode went. So, that's my first down.
Thank you, Tony. Chris, over to you. What is your first down?
My partner finds needles in haystacks. How he does it, I don't know. I didn't even have that down, but interesting. I have a lot of small ones similar to that. That was a little bigger than I thought, but I got a little small ones. But I'll go with this bigger theme. I got to tell you, Bonnie and George, Didn't like the chemistry, you know. Jessica Tuck, Yale grad, welcome on the program anytime. But I don't know, the storyline was just, oh, wooden floors, great couches, so cozy. Like, dude, you're 35, like single, like you know what he wants. Read between the lines there, okay? And then like the roommate guy, Scott. I don't know. And again, I'm grading ahead, knowing what I know, but it kind of reminded me of the whole like Neil situation. A little, I don't know. It just, oh, he looks like me, but this was even weirder. And then he had to go help him pack. Like, just, I don't know. It was just weird. Like, and this was like, again, season 6, George getting these women that, I don't know, probably shouldn't have gotten, you know. So I don't know. Bonnie and George, there was just no chemistry or like conflict. There's just like, there's nothing, you know what I mean? Like, usually there's good conflict there, where George gets in trouble, but this was just, and then him going on and on about what's the massage situation. Like, just, I don't know. I didn't love it. So for me, that's my first down is second down, first down.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, and by the way, when the hell was George going to find out that she had a male roommate? I mean, you would have found out before being over there and dating her, you know. So I don't know why he got so upset with all that. But anyway, Tony, over to you. Your second down. What do you got?
Yeah, a lot there. I wrote down the exact same thing. Very much like the Neil guy. It also is very much like the dude, although this came first. But the whole when Jerry had the girlfriend with the boy, with the man roommate, it came out. Hey, Jerry, got very similar. I'm gonna piggyback. That was the down I wrote down. I did not really care for the girlfriend either. There was no chemistry there. A lot of it made no sense. I agree with all of that. Obviously, it gave us that I would drape myself in velvet line that everyone loves, and you know that they tie back in later on. So besides that, though, I agree with O'Hara on all those points, and I'm going to piggyback off of my second down because that was one of the ones I wrote down, but he didn't touch on this, I don't think. By the way, he loves the 35 thing. That's O'Hara's. The 35 years old, you might as well everything. He's not drinking beers. He's got the whole thing. Anyway. My second down, though, just to piggyback, is why don't they just watch the Super Bowl somewhere else? Why is George going over there after all the stuff's cleared out, after there's no seats, no TV? He comes over to the place anyway with his little TV. Like, what's George doing? He's not living at his parents at this point, is he? It's season 6. I mean, go to a bar, watch the game. To Howard's point, you're 35. Go some. What is he doing? He just shows up to an empty apartment to watch the Super Bowl, and then the menage a trois thing. I mean. That whole thing, I didn't like at all. I totally agree. The callback to the menage a trois and the, you know, what is George doing at this lady's place to kind of even have that last scene? It doesn't make any sense. And I know funny's funny, but it's not funny, and it doesn't make any sense. I think they just had nothing else to do at that point, and they just had to hammer that thing home even more. But I'm just doubling down on the down and piling on top. So there you go.
Thank you, Tony. So, Chris, over to you. What do you got for your second down?
Yeah, that was a good double dip there because I didn't cover all that. So yeah, for me, I'm going to go just little lines. This is what you have to do when there's not a ton of lines, but I'll give you a couple here. This was, I think, the third time in the last 2 seasons, Jerry doing, but I don't want to be Switzerland. Like, it was like, I don't want to be a pirate. I don't want to be a cowboy now. I don't want to be Switzerland. Like, every time I hear that, I'm like, enough already. Like, even I don't want to be a cowboy, I thought was enough. Like, me, I would have left it. I don't want to be a pirate, and that's that. Okay. And then even Watley. So that, like, a lot of callbacks to Tony's point just earlier on the Minaj stuff, right? I don't want to be this to Watley. Oh, I'll take you to dinner. You ever been to Mendy's? Like, the way you got to think about shows is someone watching it for the first time, right? As DiMaggio used to say, there might be a kid out there watching me for the first time. He doesn't know what I do, right? So give your best effort and be unique within an episode. So a lot of callbacks here, and I'm getting nitpicky. Kramer only likes Canadian football. I call BS on that. He went to the Giants game with the Joel Rifkin thing. So, you know, I don't know. They try to weave this stuff in just to be clever and cute, but it was a little too much. So a couple nitpicky downs there, but downs nonetheless.
No, and you're absolutely right. In this episode, there was a lot of callbacks to stuff that had already occurred, um, and so yeah, I noticed that in a rewatch. So yeah, good mention there. So Tony, wrap us up. Give us a grade and your final thoughts here.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, O'Hara mentioned it, and I love to mention it. This is what they did. Berg Schaefer did it. Mandel did it. Mandel tells us why he did it. I brought this up plenty of times. I mean, this is what they did. They were fans of the show. They brought in this new writing team after Charles left, and these newer writers. They loved it. They loved kind of bringing in that universe and calling things back and showing these little, whatever you want to call them, Easter eggs. I don't know how you say it, but to O'Hara's point, it should be more unique, I think. And I think it's kind of, I never liked it either. So I agree with all of that. Great. Full disclosure, folks, we record a bunch of these in a row. So it's going to be repetitive to us doing it, but it won't be repetitive to you watching it because this is going to stand alone. As O'Hara just mentioned, we stand alone on our episodes. But I got a couple of grades written down, and this is very in that area of season 6 where we're not pushing anyone into A range, in my opinion. And I don't think anything's dropping to C range. So I'm looking at all the B's we can give it. And I went back and forth a few times during our discussion here. I think every character delivers. I think everyone's on point. No one really, skyrockets. O'Hara mentioned Jerry, and he's probably right. Jerry's probably the biggest up in this. And the K-Man with Newman's really good. I think Elaine delivered. I think as we just touched on, George is sort of the down here. His whole storyline wasn't good. The girlfriend wasn't good. Going back to the apartment several times. Whatley and Newman can lift it a little bit, but George is bringing it right back down. Not a lot of big moments. So that's where I'm landing, somewhere in this kind of B-ish range. And see, my gut on a label maker, and that's what I'm going to go with here. Even though I have higher grades written down, I do have this written down as well, and it is my gut. So B- for the label maker season 6 might be a little low. I'm admitting it, but when I think label maker, I don't think, one of my favorites. I'm not putting it obviously to A's. I don't think it can get a B plus in my mind. So I was between a B and a B minus. And so talking it through here, I started bringing George further down the line. And I think the George stuff kind of is what bringing it down for me, as much as we love the risk scene on the subway. So B minus for Berg and Schaefer's label maker.
All right, good comments there, Tony. So I want to go straight right to Chris then to get his view. So what do you got for us, Chris?
Yeah, Label Maker. 36 million people watch Label Maker, and I love to talk about it. What were you watching that night? By the way, it was against a Matlock repeat, okay, and eye to eye with Connie Chung. So 36 million, not much competition that night, for sure. Tony brought up a lot of points. Solid Elaine. I think Jerry stole the show, in my mind. Actually, my favorite scene, probably the whole of this episode, was Kramer running through the streets with Risk in his hand, trying to stop the tow truck, and the look on that's classic New York, right? And I hate to say, oh, it's a New York show, but it was Whatley and Jerry looking at each other. I mean, the non-verbal acting by Whatley and Jerry in this episode were really, I noticed it. Okay, but again, with all that said, Newman was great, but George, there was just a lot going on here, and then they tried to tie in the label maker even at the end, like, oh, here, George, take the label maker. Like, what? Like, I don't know. And then if you can re-gift, you can de-gift. Like, a little too much of those catchy little, stupidity that I don't really love. So what did Tony give it? I think I'm with him here. I think B minus is where we're landing here. I had B, but my partner talked to me. It's like, you're right. It's not one of those like, oh, I gotta watch the label maker tonight. You'll watch it. Wildly solid. But at the end of the day, I think it's a fair grade. B minus, season 6, for the label maker.
Well, yeah, thank you guys. A B minus from both of you, and I would give it probably a B myself, but it is like you said, it's a very good episode to watch. But yeah, are you waiting for it to come on air or tune in for it? Probably not. But you're not turning it off either. So that wraps everything up for the label maker, and appreciate everybody tuning in. And we'll see you on our next episode.